The forest was quiet, but her breathing was loud, fast, and sharp. Nia's bare feet hit the wet ground as she ran, her glowing skin marked with cuts and dirt. Her thin arms shook from fear. Behind her, distant sounds echoed metal footsteps, loud machines and growls that did not belong to any kind animal. She had escaped, but for how long? Her kind was not meant to survive alone. Nia had spent her life inside cold cages, poked and tested by humans in white suits. They called her Subject 8. They fed her once a day. They watched her cry through glass walls. Then the ship crashed. Now, she was on a wild green planet she didn't know, and she was being hunted again. She didn't know who the human was who chased her now. Maybe one of the same kind. Maybe worse. Her legs were weak, but fear pushed her forward. Suddenly, she stepped into a snare. Her foot yanked upward, and her body swung into the air. A net wrapped around her, and she screamed. She fought hard, biting and scratching, but the net held her tight. Leaves shook nearby. Heavy boots stepped into view. She froze. A tall human male stood before her. He looked nothing like the lab people. His face was rough, with stubble, sunburned skin, and a scar running from his chin to neck. He wore thick clothes, dusty and torn. His boots were heavy, and he held a blade, but not pointed at her. Their eyes met. Nia's body went cold. She waited for him to laugh like the others, to call her a thing or a sample or a creature. She knew what some humans did to aliens like her. She had seen others taken, only to vanish forever. She curled tighter into the net, heart pounding. She was sure he would eat her, but he didn't move. Instead, the human slowly crouched down. He reached into a small brown bag hanging from his belt. Nia flinched. But he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a fruit round red and juicy and gently rolled it toward her feet. She blinked. He pointed to the fruit, then to his mouth. "Eat," he said in a calm voice. Was this a trick? She narrowed her eyes and stayed silent. Her kind didn't speak human, not much. But she understood this one word. Eat. She had heard it in the lab before feeding times. She didn't trust him, not even a little, but the scent of the fruit made her mouth water. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. The human took a small knife, cut the rope holding the trap, and let her fall softly into the dirt. He didn't catch her or grab her. He stood back. Nia stayed frozen on the ground. He motioned again toward the fruit and stepped back farther, giving her space. Her body shook as she reached for it. She sniffed it. Nothing strange. She took a small bite. The taste was sweet, and her stomach hurt from joy. She ate slowly, her eyes still locked on the human. He didn't come closer. He just watched. Then, without saying a word, he turned and walked away. Nia stared after him, confused. Was this another test? She waited. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. No other humans came. No net dropped from above. No trap snapped shut. The man simply walked deeper into the forest. She saw his shape move through the trees, slow and steady. She could run the other way. Escape again, but something made her stand and follow him, just a few steps behind. He didn't look back. He knew she was there. She stepped on dry leaves, broke twigs, and sniffled. She was not quiet. But he kept walking calmly as if he wasn't scared of her or angry at her. The sky above started turning orange. Night was coming. After a short walk, they reached a small wooden shelter hidden between rocks. It was simple, only a roof and 3 walls. Inside, a small fire pit glowed. The human bent down, placed more sticks, and lit a new fire. Warm light filled the space. He took out 2 pieces of dried food and placed one near the edge of the shelter, not too close. He sat down near the fire and began eating the other one. Nia stayed outside, half hidden behind a bush, watching. Her body shivered as the cold wind touched her wet skin. She looked at the food. She looked at the fire, and then slowly, carefully, she stepped inside. He didn't move. She picked up the food, sat near the wall far from him, and took a bite. It was dry but warm. Her stomach calmed. She curled her legs to her chest and watched the fire. For the first time in her life, she wasn't locked in a cage, and for the first time, a human had not hurt her. She didn't sleep that night, but she didn't run either. Something had changed. Something she didn't understand yet, but it had begun. Asterisk. She woke up to the sound of soft breathing, but it wasn't her own. The fire was still alive, glowing softly in the middle of the small shelter. Nia hadn't really slept, only drifted in and out. Her body was still tense, ready to run at the first wrong move. But when her glowing eyes opened, she saw the human lying nearby, one arm under his head, the other across his chest. He hadn't chained her. He hadn't even touched her during the night. The food he gave her was still in her hand, half-eaten and not poisoned. She didn't understand it. Nia slowly pushed herself up, careful not to make a sound. Her body still ached from the running, the traps, and the fear. She backed up to the edge of the shelter, letting the cold morning air touch her skin. The human stirred. She froze, her muscles tight. But instead of grabbing a weapon or shouting, he just yawned, stretched like an animal waking from a long nap, and rubbed his eyes. Then he looked at her. Not like a master, not like a hunter, like a person. "You okay?" he asked, his voice deep and dry. Nia didn't reply. She only stared, silent and alert. He stood up slowly, careful not to move too fast, then picked up a metal container. He opened the lid, took a sip, and walked outside. She heard water splashing. He was washing his face in the nearby stream. She waited again. He came back holding the container, now full. He placed it near her feet and stepped back. "Drink," he said. She didn't move. He crouched and picked up a small firestone, then began to relight the flames. As the fire grew, he placed a pan over it and dropped in pieces of dried food. He added a few green leaves from a pouch. The smell rose quickly, warm, rich, and full. Nia's stomach growled. Human glanced at her. He didn't laugh. He didn't tease. He just nodded once and added more food to the pan. Then something strange happened. The fire popped loudly, and a small ember jumped toward her. She flinched, her hands flying up. Her whole body tensed, heart pounding. She expected pain, punishment, something. But the human stood up and stepped between her and the flame. He stomped out the ember gently, then turned to her. "It's okay," he said. She stared, breathing hard. His face was calm. No anger, no chains, no weapons. He just went back to cooking like it was normal, like she wasn't some hunted alien thing. With sharp bones and glowing skin, Nia didn't know why, but her legs slowly relaxed. She sat down again, not too close, not too far. She picked up the metal container and sniffed the water. It smelled like nothing. She took a small sip. It was clean. Fresh. He saw her drink and smiled slightly. He reached into his bag and pulled out 2 cloths, one clean, one damp. Without a word, he offered the damp one. She hesitated, then reached out, took it, and wiped her face. For the first time, her skin felt clean. She looked at him. "Why?" she whispered. The human looked confused. "Why what? Why help?" she asked, voice small. He didn't answer right away. He stared into the fire, thinking. Then he said, "You were scared, lost, like me." She tilted her head. "You too?" He nodded. "A long time ago." He didn't explain more. She didn't ask. But something in his tone was heavy, like a memory he carried but didn't show. After the food was ready, he split it evenly. He handed her a flat piece of wood with her portion on top. She took it with both hands. It was warm. It smelled good. She tasted it, slowly, carefully, and it was good. Better than the lab food. Better than wild berries. It was real. They ate in silence. The hotter than wild berries. It was real berries. It was real. They ate in silence. Forest outside sang with birds and soft wind, but inside the shelter, the air was calm. Later, he stood and began cleaning the pan. She watched his every move. He did everything himself, no orders, no commands. Just quiet work. When he finished, he sat near the fire and pulled something from his pack. A small flat box. He turned it on. A soft light came from it, and a picture. Showed up a woman and 2 children, all smiling. He didn't say their names, but he looked at the picture for a long time. Nia watched him closely. There was pain in his eyes. She had seen that pain before. In her own. She didn't know what it meant. Not yet, but one thing was clear. This human, he was not like the others. He shared his fire. And something more than that. Something warmer than the flame. Something she had never known before. Kindness. The sound of humming made her stop in her tracks. Nia crouched low behind the tall grass, her eyes focused on the human. He was sitting on a rock near the edge of a small stream, a long wooden stick in his hands. The stick had a string tied to the end, dipping into the water. He was fishing, but what caught her attention was something else. He was singing. No one had ever sung in the lab. Not to her. Not near her. She didn't know the words, but the tone was gentle, almost playful. It didn't sound like control or orders. It sounded like something people do when they're not afraid. When they feel safe. She had no word for that. She had no words for many things. That morning, she had woken up to find him gone. She panicked, thinking he had finally left her behind or traded her for something. She had run through the trees barefoot, her heart racing. Then she heard his humming and found him here completely calm. He glanced over his shoulder. Hungry again? She stepped out slowly. He waved her over and pointed to the stream. Fish, he said. She looked down. The water was clear. Inside, she could see silver creatures swimming in groups. Her glowing eyes followed their movements. Fast, smooth, free. He handed her another stick. She hesitated. He smiled. Try. Her hands shook slightly as she took it. He moved closer, adjusted her grip gently, and showed her how to hold still. Their arms touched for a moment. His skin was warm. Hers was cool. He didn't pull away. Minutes passed. She missed every fish. He laughed once, not at her, but at the way she leaned too far and almost fell into the stream. Then he caught one, pulled it up, and showed it proudly. She smiled for the second time in her life. Later, they sat near the fire again, cooking the fish. She touched her chest with her hand. 8, she said, remembering the number they called her in the lab. He looked at her with confusion. Your name is 8? He asked. She nodded slowly. He shook his head. That's not a name. That's a number. She didn't understand the difference. He tapped his chest. I'm Connor, she pointed at him. Connor, he smiled. Then pointed at her. You? She hesitated. She didn't know what to say. She had never needed to name herself. She had never been asked. He waited, patient. She thought back. In the lab there was a voice she remembered, a soft one. A woman who had touched her hair once when no one was looking. That woman had whispered something when Nia was very young. Nia, she said suddenly. Connor blinked. Nia? She nodded. Nia, he smiled. That's better than 8. Something warm filled her chest. She had a name now, not a tag. Not a label. A name. Nia. She repeated it softly to herself. Nia, Nia. He looked pleased. That evening, he gave her something small, a square device. She tilted her head, unsure. He pressed a button, and it lit up, showing images of animals. A learning tool. He handed it to her. Touch this one, he said, pointing to a picture of a bird. She hesitated, then touched it. Bird, the device said in a soft voice. Bird, she repeated. He nodded. For the next hour, they sat together, and she learned word after word. Tree, fire, water, sky, human. She pointed at him. Human. He gave her a thumbs up. Yes, Then he touched her gently on the shoulder. Nia, her lips parted. Her heart beat faster. Yes, she was Nia. That night, they didn't sit apart. They shared the same blanket, the fire between them. She didn't flinch when he moved. She didn't feel fear when he reached to add more wood. Instead, she watched the firelight dance in his eyes and wondered how someone so strong could also be so soft. She whispered, "Thank you." He looked surprised. "You're learning fast," he said. She touched her head. "Smart," she replied proudly. He laughed, but the moment didn't last. A loud crack came from the woods. They both stood up fast. Nia's heart raced again. Her eyes scanned the dark trees. Connor reached for a small weapon, eyes narrow. Something was coming, and this time, it wasn't friendly. But Nia wasn't the same girl who had swung helplessly in a trap. She had a name now, she had words. And for the first time, she had someone willing to protect her. She whispered the word again, this time with purpose. Human. He looked back and nodded once. Together, they faced the dark. The air turned still. Even the birds stopped singing. Nia froze mid-step, her glowing foot barely touching the ground. She knew this silence. It was the same kind that came before pain. Before chains, before blood. Connor looked up from the small device they had been using to learn words. His body tensed. He dropped the learning pad and grabbed the short blade hanging from his side. "What is it?" he asked. Nia didn't answer. She was already moving low to the ground, ears twitching, eyes searching the trees. Her breath came in short bursts. The scent on the wind was sharp, cold metal. Fuel, her heart dropped. "They found me," she said in a whisper. Connor didn't ask who. He just said, "We hide." But she shook her head. "No use," she said. The sound of engines cracked through the forest air. A small black drone zipped overhead, scanning. Connor grabbed Nia's hand and pulled her back toward the cave they had discovered days ago. Inside, it was dark and narrow. Roots hung from the ceiling, and stone walls pressed tight around them. Nia touched the wall, remembering the place where she used to be locked. This was smaller than those cages. But this time she was not alone. Connor moved fast. He set a small trap at the mouth of the cave and began checking his supplies. He had little to fight with one short blade, a few flash grenades, and a handmade spear. He was outnumbered even before the fight began. Nia touched his arm. "You go, leave. They want me." He turned to her sharply. "No. They hurt you for helping me. I live." She stared at him, confused. "Why? I'm not your kind." He paused, then spoke slowly. "Doesn't matter." That one answer burned inside her chest. Suddenly, a loud explosion hit the earth nearby. Dirt and leaves flew into the sky. Their hiding place shook. The hunters were landing. Nia grabbed the spear. Her fingers trembled. She had never fought anyone in her life. She had always been the one hiding, the one crying, the one waiting to be taken again. But now she had someone beside her. Connor placed a hand over hers. "If you don't want to fight, stay back." She looked at him. "No," she said, voice stronger. "I fight." Moments later, footsteps crunched outside. 3 shadowed figures in black armor moved through the trees. Their helmets were smooth. No faces, no names, just machines with legs. Connor threw a flash grenade. Light exploded. He rushed forward, blade in hand, slamming into one of them. The metal cracked, sparks flying. The other 2 raised their weapons, but Nia screamed, grabbing their attention. As they turned, she jumped to the side, rolling and throwing a stone at their feet. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Connor struck again. 1 down. Nia reached for a branch sharpened like a dagger and stabbed forward. Pain shot through her arm as she was hit back, crashing into a tree. Connor roared, his eyes wild. He charged like a beast, knocking one enemy into the rocks, slamming the other into the fire trap they had built. The air filled with smoke and burning fuel. Silence returned. But now it was different. It wasn't the silence of death. It was the silence of survival. Nia coughed, her arms bleeding, but she crawled to her feet. Connor knelt beside her. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. "Still here." He smiled. "You're tougher than you look." She leaned into him, tired, shaking, but not afraid anymore. "They will send more," she whispered. "Then we keep moving." They burned the remains of the drones and covered the trail behind them. That night, they camped near a cliff. The stars above looked different now, brighter, bigger. Nia sat close to the fire, arms around her knees. She looked at the human who had fought for her like she was worth something. She didn't understand it completely, but she knew one thing. She was done running alone. She looked at him and said one word softly but clearly. "Family?" He turned toward her, surprised, then nodded. "Yeah, we are now." For the first time in her life, Nia slept deeply. Not from exhaustion or fear, but because she was no longer a number, no longer alone, no longer hunted without hope. She was still glowing, still scarred, still learning. But now she was also something new. A fighter. The blood wouldn't stop. Nia pressed the cloth against Connor's chest, her hands slippery, her breathing sharp. He had passed out 2 minutes ago. A deep cut stretched across his ribs. The fire beside them burned low, casting shadows that danced across his pale skin. She had never treated a wound before. Back in the lab, when someone got hurt, the doctors would come with cold tools and no emotion. No one ever let her touch. No one ever trusted her hands, but now this human who had fought for her, killed for her, bled for her, was dying right in front of her, and there was no one else. Nia's fingers trembled. As she reached for the small bottle he carried, she remembered how he had used it once, clean first, then wrap. She poured it over the wound. Connor groaned. His body tensed. But he didn't wake. "Please stay," she whispered. The cloth turned red quickly. Her heart pounded. The fire cracked. The stars outside the cave shone cold and distant, like watching eyes that offered no help. She leaned closer, placed her cheek to his chest. Thump. Thump. Still beating, still alive, but weak. Nia bit down on fear and began stitching. Every move was slow. Every thread pulled brought a new drop of sweat to her forehead. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Not when he had risked everything to protect her. As she worked, her eyes fell on the scars on his body. Some old, some fresh. Not just from battle, but from before. Deep lines on his back. Burns, marks of chains. She had seen those before, on herself. He had been captured once too. Maybe not by her kind, but someone cruel. Someone who made him less than human. Now, he was the one giving her a name, giving her food, giving her a place, and all he asked for was nothing. She finished the stitching and wrapped the cloth tight. She cleaned his face gently, wiping away dirt and dried blood. His hair was soaked. His lips cracked. Nia stood up, walked outside, and filled a small leaf bowl with fresh water. She returned and pressed it to his lips. He didn't drink. She dipped her fingers and let water drip into his mouth. "Drink," she whispered. A faint movement. He swallowed. She sighed in relief. She sat back against the wall, her arms still shaking. It was the first time she had kept someone alive. All night, she stayed awake, checking his breathing, watching every small twitch. When the sun broke through the cave's cracks, painting light across the stones, Connor opened his eyes. His voice was dry. "You stitched me?" She nodded. He smiled weakly. "Good job." Tears welled in her eyes, but she looked away quickly. She didn't want to cry again, not when she had done something strong. He tried to sit, but she pushed him back. "Rest," she said. He looked at her face, her glowing cheeks marked with dirt and care. "You saved me." Her hands gripped her knees. "You saved me first." For a while, neither spoke. The fire burned low, just enough to warm the air. Outside, Birds returned to the trees. The danger had passed for now. Connor reached out, palm open. She looked at his hand, then placed hers in it. Warmth passed between them. "You're not just a survivor," he said. "You're more." She didn't know what more meant, but it felt important. Later, she helped him sit up. His breath was shallow, but his eyes were stronger now. He looked at the cave wall, carved into it, while she had waited through the night, were small marks, lines, one for each day they had survived together. She didn't even remember doing it. Her fingers must have moved while her mind held on to him. He smiled. "You kept count." She looked at the marks. "I didn't want to forget." He nodded. "Neither do I." She stood and walked to the entrance of the cave. Her skin shimmered in the morning light. She looked at the forest, the stream, the hill where they had almost died, and she realized something. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was still hunted, still strange, still different. But now she had a reason to fight, not just for herself, but for the human who gave her a second life. Inside the cave, he whispered her name once, and she smiled. Because this time, it didn't feel like a label. It felt like love. Asterisk, the smell of smoke made her pause. But this time, it didn't mean danger. It smelled like cooked food, warm bread, and something sweet. Nia crouched at the top of the hill, looking down. Her glowing eyes blinked slowly. She had never seen a place like this. A human village, wooden homes with tall stone chimneys, children running between trees, old humans sitting near small fires, clothes hanging on wires, lanterns glowing in the daylight. It didn't look like a trap. It looked like a dream. But dreams had betrayed her before. Connor was behind her, limping from his healing wound. His hand rested on her shoulder. "This is where we go next," he said quietly. "They might help us." She turned to him. "Or sell me." He looked into her eyes. "Not if I stand with you." That promise meant more than protection. It meant he would walk beside her, not in front of her, not behind her. With her. Still, her legs didn't move. What if they saw her glowing skin and thought she was dangerous? What if they shouted like the lab guards? What if they called her a thing? Connor walked ahead slowly. Nia stayed still. She watched as he entered the village gates. People turned. They knew him. Some ran to help. Others asked questions. He waved them off and pointed back up the hill, toward her. She swallowed hard. She stood. She walked down. Each step felt heavy. The sun caught her strange skin. Her bones shimmered through the thin cloth. Her eyes glowed like fireflies. No one else looked like her. A child screamed. A woman pulled her daughter away. A soldier raised a weapon. Nia stopped. Her breath froze in her throat. Connor stepped in front of her. "She's with me," he said firmly. "She's not a threat." The soldier didn't lower the weapon. "She's not human, I know. She's from the crashed ship 2 weeks ago. Some say her kind eats people." Connor's jaw tightened. "She's eaten nothing but berries and bread since I found her. She saved my life." A long pause followed. Then someone stepped forward. It was a girl, maybe 6 years old, holding a blue flower. She stared up at Nia with wide, curious eyes, no fear. Just wonder. She raised the flower with her tiny hand. "For you," the child said. Nia bent slowly, trembling, and took the flower. The petals were soft. The warmth in her hand spread to her heart. She looked up. The crowd had changed. The soldier lowered his weapon. One by one, people relaxed. A few nodded. Others whispered. But no one shouted anymore. A space opened in the crowd. Connor stepped aside. She walked in. Someone offered them food. Someone else pointed to a small hut where they could rest. Inside, it was quiet. There was a bed, a table, and a window with light. Connor sat down with a long sigh. "We made it." Nia stood near the door, staring out. Children ran past, laughing. She whispered. "They didn't throw stones," Connor chuckled. "That's a good start." That night, the village leader visited Dot, an old woman with white hair and sharp eyes. She studied Nia carefully. "Why are you here?" she asked. Nia stood tall. "Not to hurt." The woman raised a brow. "Then what?" Nia pointed at Connor. "He helped me. I want to stay near him." The leader nodded slowly. "We don't know what your kind has done, but you speak clearly, you protect. You try." Nia said nothing. The woman placed a hand on her shoulder. "You may stay, but earn your place." Nia bowed her head. "I will." The next days were full of work. She helped plant crops. She washed clothes in the stream. She repaired a broken roof. Her fingers bled. Her back ached. But no one called her a creature. They called her Nia. One evening, she sat with Connor outside their small hut. A cool wind blew, carrying the scent of cooking from nearby homes. He passed her a piece of fruit. "You've done more in 1 week than most do in a month." She smiled. "I was scared," she said. "But now." She looked up at the sky. Stars blinked slowly. "Now I feel something." "What?" She turned to him. "Belonging." Connor nodded. "You earned it." She rested her head against his shoulder. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she wasn't just surviving, she was living. The ship stood tall at the edge of the village, silver and smooth. Glowing under the twin moons. It hummed softly, its engines warm and ready to rise. Connor stood at the ramp, holding 2 small bags. His wounds had healed. His strength had returned. The village elders had finally found a way to contact a rescue vessel passing through the outer rim. He had asked for one thing: a way to send Nia home, and now it was time to say goodbye. But Nia wasn't moving. She stood in the shadows near the well, arms crossed tightly, her glowing eyes locked on the ship like it was a beast. Her skin caught the moonlight. Her hair was tied back with a village cloth. She looked strong, brave, but something in her chest felt like it was falling apart. Connor waited. Minutes passed. She didn't come closer. Finally, he walked toward her. "They'll take you somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere your kind might be." Nia looked up slowly. "You want me to go?" He didn't answer right away. He placed the bags down and sat beside her on the stone ledge. "I want you to choose," he said. She didn't expect that. In the lab, there were no choices. In the forest, there were only instincts. But here in this village with humans who smiled at her and gave her names, she had learned something new. Choice. "I was never asked what I wanted before," she said softly. "I'm asking now." She looked toward the ship. It meant answers. It meant finding out who she was, where she came from, what kind of blood ran through her glowing veins. But it also meant leaving him, the man who had fed her, fought beside her, bled for her, believed in her. She looked at the bag in his hand. Inside it were clothes she had helped sew, bread she had helped bake, a drawing one of the village children made of her and Connor standing under a tree. "This is home now," she said. He blinked. "You're sure?" She nodded. "I choose. This, I choose you." His eyes softened. "You could find your people." "I already did." The village bell rang once. The ship pilot stepped out and waved. 5 minutes till lift. Connor stood up, walked to the pilot, and handed him a note. "If anyone ever finds more like her, tell them she's safe. Tell them she's not alone." The pilot nodded. Then the ship rose. Nia stood with her arms crossed, watching it vanish into the stars. It didn't hurt like she thought it would. She had made her decision, and her heart was calm. Later that night, she sat beside the fire, her back resting against Connor's. They shared silence, the kind that spoke more than words. Children ran past them, laughing, chasing glowing bugs. An old man handed her a cup of warm tea. "You belong here now," he said. She smiled. She watched Connor as he carved something into a piece of wood. When he finished, he handed it to her. It was a nameplate. It read, in shaky human writing, "Nia's home." She traced the letters with her fingers. "I don't know what comes next," she said. He looked at her. We find out together. As the stars lit up the sky, Nia leaned closer and whispered something in her old language words no one in the village understood. Connor asked, "What does it mean?" She placed her hand over his chest. "It means the light I found in the dark." He wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and in the glow of the fire, surrounded by laughter, earth, and stars, Nia was no longer lost. She was no longer afraid. She was no longer waiting to be saved, because she had saved herself by choosing to stay.